Hello, everybody out there joining me either at Rubbernecker Stamps YouTube or Copic in the Craft Room YouTube. I'm going to be doing a really quick, easy face today. Again, just some skin and hair coloring. We've been doing a lot of that recently, and I've been trying to do a lot of darker skin tones. So we have, obviously I'm a fairly light color range, and then we have all those mediums and beautiful darks, and so we're going to do a little bit darker skin tone again. We have this whole series of stamps over at Rubbernecker that are just amazing, and we are working our way through many of them. All right, so I am going to do a series of E2s on this particular one. You've seen me do similar techniques on other faces, so this isn't necessarily a new technique. It's more just a newer series of colors. I'm going to do something similar to what I did last week, where I'm kind of skipping a number and then coming back to it. I'm gathering my markers as I talk to you, sorry. So I am going to start with a really light color, which is that E21, and that's going to disappear in the end. And I probably should have told you this is Ellen, Ellynn is this lovely lady. One of the easy things about this particular stamp is I can go right over her eyes since they are not open, and I tend for this first color to also go over their eyebrows and their lips, because I know the hair is going to go darker. The lips have that kind of skin tone at the base of them, so if we have a couple skin tones on there, that is okay. But it makes getting that first layer on the paper a little bit quicker. Sorry, stop talking there for a second. So, questions that people often have about working with Copics. I'm going to switch to an E23. And this is where I'm kind of, actually, no, remember I said that at the beginning. I'm going to skip to my E25. This is where I'm pulling in those areas of shading. So what I'm looking for is places that are pushed back in to the face. So like the nose sticks out, the eyes sit back. They are going to appear to have more shadow, and this E25 is very, very dark. So I'm going to do very minimal, but I'm mapping out the areas that would have that shading. And this skin tone is actually going to be fairly dark. This is going to be one of the darker ones that I do. I'm going to come up one side of the nose, because this little gal, because Ellen is facing square on, she's not turned to one side or the other. I tend to pick one side of the nose to shade, and that's very purposeful on my part. I find if I try to shade both sides, she ends up looking a little piggish. That is not what I want to do to her. And I can't really see the edge of the face on that right-hand side, but I'm creating a little bit of an edge there. The neck is a long cylinder, so we're going to work our way down both sides of the neck. I tend to hint at a collarbone. Oop, I missed part of her shoulder, didn't I? And then we're going to come up along the base of the hand, kind of that underside. Those long, slim fingers, that's going to be hard. I'm just running the tip of my marker along that edge. Remember, if you have a little bit of pressure control issue, you can try that broad nib. Let's see. We want to come up and under the second hand. Her thumb, we're seeing kind of through the glass. So I'm not going to put this darker color there. I will come back in a few minutes and get a little darker color on there, but not this one. I don't know if you guys can see this, but my marker is starting to look really, really wet. That means it's about to try to drip on my artwork. So I'm going to go off to the side. I'm going to open that other lid. That's going to help a little bit. All right. So I feel like I've got things placed where I want it. I am going to come back and add a little bit on her shoulder. Again, we're creating that round shape. All right. So that was E25. We're going to jump all the way to E27, and this, the beauty of this step is it's really all those same spots in less amount, so it just doesn't come out as far onto her face. There's not a huge difference between these two, but it's going to add to the richness of that color. Right up under that nice full bottom lip. Probably need to pull that a little further out. And on the hands, I'm not going to try to do the fingers, but I am going to go right at the kind of base of the wrist. And right in the corner. Of those eyes to really push those back. I also missed the interior of her ear. All right, so right now we've got E21, E25, and E27. So I'm going to go back to my E25. What I'm looking for is these spots where I see the difference between the E27 and the E25. So I'm going to kind of go over those areas a second time, hit the edge of the E27 and pull that into and soften it into the E25 a little bit. Pull that a little further on that cheekbone. Didn't have much down here. The last step is going to go jump back to a color we did not use yet. And that is the E23. So we skipped that one. This is what our highlight areas are actually going to end up. So that E21 is actually going to disappear. So I'm going to go ahead and add it back in on that little shoulder because we missed that. So with the E23, I'm going to start at the edge of that darker color. And I'm going to kind of circle back into the dark area first, and then I'm going to pull it out into that lighter area. Now this, I will tell you guys right now, these are harder colors to work with in that when you're working with these really dark colors, you're building up an awful lot of ink pretty fast. it truly just takes more practice. This is not something, when I do this, every third or fourth one will just not work. So know that in advance. Now, if you feel like you're losing a little bit of the highlight, you feel like it's getting a little too dark, I'm going to show you a solution for that here in just a minute, but we're going to work our way down because we want it all to be fairly consistent. Now, obviously, or not so obviously, but just so you know, you could choose to kind of do one section at a time. Do her face, come back and do her neck and chest, come back and do one or both hands. So you could do this kind of in segments, and I'm not being super careful as I work my way across here. So I am making a few little mistakes. That lighter color on the thumb. Kind of soften up the edge on that shoulder. Pull that out. Shoulder. Pull that out. All right, so if you feel like you've lost a little too much of that skin tone, you can go back to that lightest one. Remember, we covered that up, but I could come back in and brighten up kind of along the top of her cheeks, along the top of her nose, brow. And again, that's kind of up to you. You can fiddle and make it worse. I've been there, done that as well. So I would tell people, when you feel like you're getting close, take a step back before you do more. And make sure you're not going too far. Okay, I'm going to hit that thumb, and I might have to lighten that a little bit further. So I'm going to let this sit for just a second, but I'm going to do, I think, 2 more things. I'm wondering, should that be pretty on there? I don't know if that's going to get dark enough. Thinking. I was trying to think about giving her just a touch of pinkness to her cheeks. This has quite a bit of blue in it. I feel like it's going to go too blue. I'm worried. So I'm testing things off to the side. Sorry, you guys probably want to see this. So this is my E27. And my concern is if I use something lighter like an E04 to add that redness, it's actually going to lighten that, and it is. So that's not going to work. Let's see. Actually, that might work. Okay, so this is actually an E09. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling that in. There is a ton of red in that E09. Now this could push this over the edge. I might have gone 1 layer too much. We will find out shortly here. So I'm doing this as quickly as possible to kind of pull those colors out without blending back onto the face, if you can kind of tell. I'm really trying to keep a very, very light hand. I've got a lot of ink on this little face, so. but I think we got it. All right, it worked, it worked. Now I'm going to use that same E09 though, and I'm going to come in on the bottom edge of her top lip and the bottom edge, and just right in that center of her bottom lip, E04. Could definitely do a deeper red if you wanted, like even an R59 and take her really deep. If you chose to put eyeshadow on her, this is the stage you would do that at. Be really cautious. This would be another time you'd want to test this over here. But if she's wearing a little bit of eyeshadow, what about a purple? I'm trying to think what would be really pretty on her. Maybe just a really subtle kind of smoky purple. This is a V28, because think about how we do makeup. We put makeup on top of our skin, and so when you put makeup on a face like this, you want to make sure you do it on top of the skin tones so it reads like makeup. All right, now I was kind of thinking to try to go for a deeper red in her hair this time. So let's do this. Let's start. I'm going to grab some colors and we'll kind of do a little test run, kind of off to the side again. I'm kind of thinking of pushing this a little bit. We're going to see if we can play a little bit. Can you tell I'm finding markers? All right, and then, okay, so what if, so I've got a series here that I'm gonna see what happens. So this is going to go kind of wine colored. I don't know that I want it to get, but that might be, I'm actually kind of liking that. It is definitely going to be a lighter haired color combo. And I think with this one, I am going to go from light to dark. I go back and forth on hair a little bit. So I'm going to base her hair in E13. And I'm going to do that fairly quickly. This is more about getting rid of the white. I am not going to leave a white highlight on her. So it's more about just basing that. I'm going to tell you right now, I am probably not going to hit her jewelry today. I'm going to focus just on this skin and hair. I feel like that's where a lot of you are really wanting to learn more. So that is where I am staying today. My girl is the designated driver and she is drinking a Pepsi Zero because that would have been my job. All right, and still would be. Okay, and then, now this is going to sound funny, but I'm going to go up now to an R56. So that was E13. Now we've got an R56. And let's watch where this hair happens. So we're going to start flicking and we want to show these beautiful waves. So I'm actually going to come in and do a little bit of treatment to each of these sections, and where I'm looking for is where the hair kind of bends out and away from her face versus curling in towards her face. The stuff that comes in towards her face is going to be darker. Where it goes out away from her face will get lighter. So I'm going to think of that kind of each time. And there's some exceptions because we always kind of get darker at that part. Remember to keep turning your image. Our hands tend to flick really well in one direction and not as well in others. Had a lot of practice flicking kind of in all different directions, so I'm not fair. You don't get to compare to me. I am supposed to make this look extremely fun and easy. You have to remember, I've been doing this for a very long time with Copics and other things, playing with paint and pens and other mediums. All right, I think we've got a sense of the shape, and really that first kind of layer of flicks gives us that sense. Did we get the shape we're looking for? I'm going to jump to an E09, and I'm going back into all the same areas. So I'm going to literally start at the same spot. I'm way up at this point on that tip of my marker. And I won't have quite as many flicks of this color. And this is going to be an odd color combination. I'm just going to go there right now. So as soon as we get the first layer done, we might have to go work it a little bit more. I'm purposefully making those flicks different lengths. It's going to get considerably darker in right against her face and the hair that's coming out from behind her neck. Coming over to the other side, make sure I'm still on the screen for you guys. Peek up. I think that's the hardest part about YouTube. You guys can't yell at me. You're falling off the screen. All right, we're getting there, working our way around. Some of these longer curls are the hardest part. Go ahead and give yourself a little bit of a brace on the table. I'm laying the kind of heel of my hand down so I have something to kind of steady myself. And it never hurts to practice some of those curves off to the side. Say, okay, I know this is what I need my hand to do. Is it ready to do that? Nothing wrong with that. Give it a few practice runs. So we've reinforced that shape, and I'm going to do one more layer, R59. And this is going right into those corners. So it's not even going to go all the way out, kind of into those deepest spots. So it shows where pieces are coming out from under other pieces. And we'll definitely need to go back and do a little bit of work to get these colors to kind of happily marry each other, for sure. It's kind of fun to try new color combos. We'll see how successful this one is. All right. So not necessarily done with any of them, but I'm going to skip back to the R59. And this one I'm going to pull further into that highlight. I want to almost make that disappear. So this is going to be kind of have a pink feel to it, kind of burgundy pink, hopefully deeper, more burgundy. Again, remember to turn your paper. I'm like testing fate here by not turning mine as much as I should. But this is going to soften some of those deepest colors. And there's a place I probably need to put a little darker back in. So the highlight hasn't completely disappeared, but it almost has. And that's kind of purposeful. I really wanted it to bring that down. So darker, go back with a little bit of E09 under there. All right, and back to kind of soften a few of those spots again with the E or R56, sorry. And the last thing I'm going to do is I am going to come back with that lightest color, which was the E13. And you could stop at any point and say, ooh, I like it right there. So what I'm doing is I'm just going back into that highlight area and bringing a little bit of warmth back into that color. It is, if you can see it at all, it's pushing that color just a little bit, so it is lightening it up as well. I'm kind of liking that color though. I'm digging that. All right. So the one thing I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and put her eyebrows in, and I'm not going to go all the way with that darkest red. I'm going to use the E09 and add that in. And there we go. So I will have photos of this if you want to see the colors more closely, a list of those, and on my blog at scrapweaver.com, and the video you can find in a couple different places now. But thank you for joining me at either spot, and I hope you have a very happy, colorful day.